Agamben's work, The Use of Bodies, is the final volume in his Homo Sacer series, where he brings together his lifelong investigation into politics, philosophy, and life. In this book, he examines what it means to use the body and how this idea can open new ways of thinking about life, politics, and freedom. Use is not just a practical activity or the employment of tools, but a form of relation to ourselves and others that escapes the rigid divisions between subject and object, active and passive, public and private. He sees the concept of use as a key to rethink ethics and politics in a world dominated by work, productivity, and control. Agamben begins the work with Aristotle, who defined the slave as a living tool whose work is the use of the body. This definition reveals a long history of linking human life to usefulness and productivity. The slave is not outside humanity, but embodies or represents a strange zone between instrument and person, life and property. Agamben shows that by treating human beings in terms of their use, Aristotle set up a framework that shaped Western thought. People are judged by their capacity to work, produce, and serve. However, Agamben suggests that there is something else hidden in the idea of use, an activity that is not productive or oriented toward an end, but rather a way of inhabiting life itself. Drawing on ancient philosophy, Roman law, and Christian theology, Agamben traces how concepts of use developed over centuries. In Roman law, the word use referred not just to ownership but to the enjoyment or practice of something without fully possessing it. This idea reappears in theology, where humans were set to use the world without owning it absolutely, since everything belonged to God. For Agamben, these traditions hint at a way of living that is not based on mastery or control but on sharing, dwelling, and caring. To use a body, a tool, or even oneself is to enter into a relation without fully possessing or dominating it. The book also explores the concept of inoperativity, which Agamben develops as the opposite of productivity. Inoperativity does not mean laziness or inactivity, but rather the suspension of predetermined functions which opens the possibility of new uses. A poem, for instance, renders language inoperative by showing what language can do beyond communication. Politics, art, and human life can be freed from fixed purposes when we focus on use instead of production. Inoperativity is the essence of human potential, the ability not just to act but to suspend, redirect, and transform action. Agamben connects this to his idea of form of life, a life that cannot be separated from its way of living. Instead of dividing bare biological existence from political life, as earlier philosophers did, he insists that life is always lived in forms, styles, habits, gestures that express how we use ourselves and our world. To imagine a form of life is to imagine a way of living where use is free and common, not captured by work or law. This leads to his vision of a politics that is not about sovereignty, law, or domination, but about what he calls destituent potential, a power that does not create new structures of authority but renders existing ones inoperative, opening space for new possibilities. Throughout the book, Agamben reads literature, philosophy, and law with care, showing how the concept of use appears in unexpected places. He reflects on slavery, intimacy, technology, and even privacy, always returning to the question of how human beings relate to their own bodies and to one another. He warns against the modern obsession with ownership, identity, and productivity, which isolates individuals and reduces life to labor. Instead, he invites us to think about a politics of sharing, where what is common is not property but the inappropriable, the the part of life that cannot be owned but only used together.